is Evie, and I'm going to be recording a series of videos about why I believe the Church of Christ is a cult. The Church of Christ that I'm talking about is the non-institutional Church of Christ, sometimes called the non-instrumental Church of Christ as well, or abbreviated the NI Church of Christ, or COC. I was born and raised in the Church of Christ. My parents joined before I was born, I think, maybe a year or two before I was born, and so I was born in, I never had the choice to be a part of it, and I was in the Church of Christ for 23 years, and I left during my senior year of college. And immediately after I left, I didn't realize that I had been in a cult. I knew that it had been somewhat of a traumatic and harmful experience, and that I didn't want anything to do with the group. But I've been out for a little over 10 years now, and it just has really been in the past year or so that I realized this is a cult, and it was brought to my attention actually by people that I know who I've been sharing some of my experiences with. So maybe the first question someone might have for me is why I'm making these videos. And the reason that I'm making the video is really mostly for myself. I found that it's really healing to share my story with other people, and also sometimes when I share, there are things that other people learn from the experiences that I've had. I know that I'm not the only one. The Church of Christ isn't huge. It's not as big as some other groups like Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons, but it's not small either. I mean, there's many tens of thousands of people who are in the Church of Christ all around the world, and there are different branches of the Church of Christ, and so I'm going to be specifically talking about the NICOC, or Non-Institutional Church of Christ, but I know that there are other groups. The NICOC is a pretty fundamentalist conservative group, and there are some groups that are less conservative. I can't speak about those. I've heard stories about them. I've also heard of the International Church of Christ. So I'm not talking about those groups. I'm just talking about the one that I was raised in. And another reason that I'm doing these videos is because I think it's really important for people to be educated about what's happening in these groups. A lot of times the groups, especially the NICOC, they don't really associate with people in other churches. I don't know that I consider the NICOC to be a church in the legitimate sense. I really do feel like it's a cult, and so I try not to call it a church, even though church is in the name. It really is an organization, and I'm not sure that it has anything to do with being a church. But they don't associate with other groups very much, and so a lot of people, unless you personally know someone who's been in it, or have read books written by people who are members of the Church of Christ, a lot of people just have never heard of it and they don't know anything about it. And I also was raised in the group that is in the southeastern United States, and I know regionally there are different variations, and I think the core teachings are the same, but some of the cultural practices might be different. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I'm going to be doing these videos using the structure of the BITE model by Steve Hassan, and I will include a link to the website where I got the BITE model. I attended a conference, the International Cultic Studies Association conference this year, and there are lots of cult experts, and Steve Hassan is recognized. I think it might be Dr. Steve Hassan is recognized as an expert in cults and has written multiple books on cultic mind control and supporting family members who are getting out of cults. And so if you're curious about that, I would recommend looking into those. So I'm going to be using his BITE model, and I'll do a different video for each one of the letters. So the acronym is BITE. So I'll do a different video for each of those letters, and then I'm going to do a last video that's just about me and my understanding, like how I came to understand that the Church of Christ was a cult. I hadn't heard of the Bite model or anything like that when I started wondering, like, was this a cult that I was in? And I'll share more about that and kind of like what was happening for me and like what were the clues that I had from my own experience that maybe this was more than just a church, but that there was something else, something more going on. So thanks for watching. This is just my introductory video sharing more about like what I'm going to be talking about. And I don't think it's super important to talk a whole lot about myself, but during the course of these videos I will be sharing from my own personal experience, or like from the experiences of people I know. Like personally know, not just stories that I've heard, but really just like this is what has happened. I did grow up in the Church of Christ, and I went to a Church of Christ college, and so I spent a lot of time really like learning all of the doctrines and the teachings, and I've met people in the Churches of Christ all around the world. I've traveled to Peru, to Italy, and so it's not just my experience in the southeastern United States, but that's most of my experience because that's where I grew up and where I've spent most of my life up till now. So thanks for watching. If you want to make sure to see all of the videos, please subscribe and like the videos. And I'm not sure if I'm super interested in feedback right now. I guess we'll see. I feel like I'm probably mostly making these videos for people who are the people who will watch it will probably be people who have been a part of the Church of Christ or know people who are in the Church of Christ, maybe people who have family members who are in the Church of Christ. And if you are just curious and want to learn more about it, you definitely can watch them, but I'm imagining myself mostly talking to people who know something about the Church of Christ, or maybe who are people like me who have left, or people who have questions, who are part of it, and they're, wondering like kind of what's going on and getting a weird feeling, or feeling like they're not really, they're having doubts and they're not really sure whether they believe. So if you fall into any of those categories, this will probably be really interesting to you. Thanks for watching.